Now, obviously, I knew this before this movie, but while watching this movie, the whole time I was just thinking in my head, women are just so much stronger than men. Like, they should totally be ruling the world. Like, this world would be so much better. Men are so weak. As I was laying in bed editing this review to upload, I realized I forgot a very important part to this video. Welcome to my safe haven! So this weekend, after waiting pretty much a year due to a global pandemic that nobody foresaw, A Quiet Place 2 finally released in theaters. I actually saw it on Friday. Today's Sunday with me recording and editing and uploading this review. And it was my first time going to a movie theater since March of 2020. Last movie I saw in the theaters was Pixar's Onward. And at first I was like, I'm not going to the movie theater. I'll probably just wait for it to go to streaming later on. But then I was like, for the YouTube channel. And then like, what do I really have to be afraid of? I'm fully vaccinated. I got both shots of Moderna, so I might as well. So yeah, and honestly for me personally, the movie theater experience wasn't that bad. Now when I looked around, nobody around were wearing masks, but with the way that they did it, for those of you that perhaps have not yet been to the theater, is they do space people out based on where you're sitting. If your movie theater has assigned seating, what they would do is block off the seats that are next to you. So if you go to the movie theater with you and another person, the seat next to you and the seat next to your other person, nobody can sit in those, and then people can sit in the ones next to those. So it's basically just skipping a seat, so you're not that far away from other people. But yeah, if you're not okay with that, then yeah, you probably shouldn't go to the movies. But like I said, it didn't bother me as much as I thought it would. But yeah, getting into A Quiet Place 2. A Quiet Place follows the Abbott family after the tragic events of part 1, and now they have to venture outside of their home into the unknown, and they soon realize that the creatures that hunt by sound are not the only threats lurking beyond the sand path. And so yeah, once again, returning for this movie as director and writer is John Krasinski, who I'm still really hoping gets announced to be cast as the MCU version of Reed Richards. Please, Marvel and Kevin Feige, you know what I want, and I want Emily Blunt to be Sue Storm. I know she denied it in a recent interview, but Benedict Cumberbatch denied playing Doctor Strange at one point in an interview, and Tatiana Maslany denied being She-Hulk in the upcoming Disney Plus series, so I don't believe anything that these actors have to say. And I know at one point Emily Blunt was very close to getting the role of Black Widow before Scarlett Johansson got the role. So she's primed to be in a Marvel movie at some point. So John Krasinski and Emily Blunt are already married. So just do Reed Richards and Sue Richards. Like, give it to me. The whole fan community wants it. Well, most of us. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic. But speaking of Emily Blunt, A Quiet Place also sees the return of Emily Blunt, starring as Evelyn Abbott, Millicent Simmons as their daughter, Reagan Abbott, and Noah Jupe as the son, Marcus Abbott. And I am happy to say, being that this is the first thing that I saw in the movie theaters after almost a year, I really enjoyed A Quiet Place 2. And I am so glad I went to go see it in the theaters. Because out of all the movies that should be seen in theaters, this is definitely one of them. Like, I just love the atmosphere and the camaraderie with the audience that this type of movie specifically creates. I remember seeing A Quiet Place Part 1 in a packed theater on opening night, and then just the newness of the movie and the fact that you couldn't speak. The whole movie was called A Quiet Place, and like the audience felt as if we were in this world with these characters. Like, there was deafening silence in the theater, and any little sound from like somebody crinkling their popcorn or anything like that, everybody would just look into that person like, what are you doing? As if we were gonna get attacked by these necromorph looking demon alien creatures. And while there wasn't as much of that in this second movie, probably because this theater wasn't as packed as when I saw it opening night, but there was still some of that, and just the camaraderie of the jump scares and people having the same reactions that you're doing when you're like, no, don't do that, what is going on? Especially, even though this movie does have kills and everything and some jump scares, this movie is PG-13, so there wasn't really any blood, sex, gore, or magic. I still had a fun time with it, and it also kind of does show that you can get away with a lot with a PG-13 movie. Like, even though there was a lot of death in this movie, because they didn't show blood, it didn't matter as much. And so because this wasn't a rated R movie, there were some kids in the theater in this movie, and it was just funny hearing the kids' reaction where they're like, why did you do that? Or that's so stupid. And I was just laughing to myself, and it's something that you can't get watching it in the comfort of your own home. But on the flip side, you don't have to worry about dying of the monkey flu in the privacy of your own home. So I guess take what you can. Get vaccinated. But the thing that I liked about this movie and why I definitely would consider it a worthy sequel to the first movie is, with most sequels in any movie that's building itself up to be a franchise, which I'm thinking this movie is going to be, I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up announcing a part 3, especially depending on how much money it makes. But most times with sequels, they always want to go bigger and wider and more grandiose, and sometimes doing the same exact thing that they did in part 1, just on a bigger scale. And this movie didn't really do that. And that's not to say this movie didn't go bigger. Like, yes, you got to see more of the creatures compared to what you saw in part 1, but it worked. It didn't take away from the mystique, not to be confused with the character from X-Men, of the creatures, and it didn't take away from the scariness of the creatures. Like, actually seeing them more in this movie just showed you how terrifying these creatures are. But the thing that this movie did is shifted focus a little bit, whereas the first movie was mostly about John Krasinski and Emily Blunt's characters, and the kids were there too. Like, it was about the whole family, but it was mostly about those two. But in this movie, the daughter, Reagan Abbott, got way more of the focus. I would say she was the protagonist of this movie. And then also the son got way more to do in this movie. Now, that doesn't mean that Emily Blunt wasn't in this movie at all, but I feel like her character definitely took a back seat to this movie compared to the first one. And this movie didn't suffer for it at all. Like, Millicent Simmons, who plays Reagan, like, she's a pretty damn good actor. And I really appreciate that this actor, who is actually deaf in real life, is getting her chance to shine. Because how many times do you get to see differently abled actors getting shine in a major franchise movie? It doesn't happen that often. And her character, even though she was a kid, she was a badass. And I mean, the sound mixing in this movie was pretty great. Like, and obviously this isn't a spoiler because it's a pretty prominent thing in the first movie, and I did mention that Millicent Simmons is an actual deaf actor playing a deaf character. So yes, her character is deaf. And so there were a couple moments in this movie, just like in the first one, but I feel like more prominently so, where there were just moments where the sound would just completely drop. There was nothing happening at the moment, and you're just like, this, it just adds to the level of creep factor and fear that you have for this character, because you're just like, oh, I hope she makes it. Don't turn around. But yeah, I have fun with this movie. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as the first one, mostly just because of the novelty of the concept of the first one. Plus, of course, it's the first one. It's your first time entering this world. So by that, I ended up enjoying it more, but not by that much, honestly. Now, with that said, even though I did have fun with this movie, I did really enjoy this movie, I will say, a thing that constantly pisses me off with regards to Hollywood, and I was like, oh, come on, you're actually doing it in this movie too. Like, what? Like, come on. Like, really? I counted about six black people in this movie, and all 6 of them died. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Hollywood, like, come on. And actually, no, I take it back. There were 7, and 1 of them didn't die. But, like, come on. Like, yeah. I was just like, are you serious? Like, is this, come on. Come on! But that's the problem you run into being a black sci-fi fantasy comic book fan, like, especially a black gay comic geek, black gay sci-fi fantasy comic book fan, where you're just like, yeah, better representation for the black characters, better representation for the gay characters, where are the black gay characters? So this is just another example of that. But yeah, putting that aside, like I said, I really enjoyed this movie, and so I would definitely recommend it, and I would say A Quiet Place 2 is a high hit. But the question is, have you guys seen A Quiet Place 2? If you haven't seen it in the theaters yet, do you plan on going to the theaters to see it, or are you going to wait for it to premiere on Paramount Plus? I think it's in 45 days after the release, and you're just going to watch it in the comfort of your own home. Let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you can, hit that thumbs up button and like this video to really help out the channel. Guys, I am almost at 4,000 1,000 subscribers. So please hit that like button and push this video in the algorithm so more people could be recommending my channel, more people could be exposed to my channel, more people could subscribe to my channel and get me over that 4,000 hump. And let's go even higher than that. Let's get to 5,000, 6,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1 million. So with that said, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button and hit that bell notification button so you're alerted every single time I post a new video, and tell your friends, families, and neighbors about my channel to help me continue to grow. And as always, I will catch you guys next time.